God is going to prove to everybody who ever was or is that He is indeed the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That event, which will culminate the Battle of Armageddon and set up the millennium reign of Christ, 1,000 years reign of Christ. When He gets down, He will put foot on the Mount of Olives, which will split, and a valley will be created, and it will be an escape route for Israel that's being pummeled by Antichrist forces at that time. It will be so dramatic. And when the millennium reign is set up, it will be 1,000 years of glory with Christ as the ruler. And when He does come down, He's going to take hold. One of the first things He'll do, He'll take hold of the Antichrist and the false prophet, also known as the first beast and the second beast. They don't look like beasts. That just describes their inner nature. He'll take hold of them. He's going to put them in the lake of fire forever. But He won't do that with the devil. He'll take the devil too, but He'll put him in the bottomless pit for the entire length of the millennium. And the devil will be in a bottomless pit. That means he'll be falling for 1,000 years. And for some reason, I feel real good about that. That event is called the second coming of Christ. However, there is something that happens 7 years before that, which is a lot different than that. In fact, a lot of people, and sometimes including myself, we have tied the two together just to try to make it more explainable. Try to make it easier to grasp and to understand. That event 7 years before the one just described, which is the second coming, but 7 years before it, He will come not to the earth, He will come to the sky, not very far up, probably coming as low as 6,000 feet of the earth. And there's a Greek word that we can have to prove that point. And that's to catch away His bride and take them into heaven. And then when He comes 7 years later in the event just described as put foot on the Mount of Olives, then the church will come with Him. That's why I said you'll be on your white horse too. But here we have this 7 years before. So some people have said, and it's all right to say it to make it more explainable, I've done it myself, that this is like two phases of the second coming, although this last one is actually the second coming, because that's when He actually comes to the earth. This other one, He doesn't come to the earth. But it's all right to look at it as two phases. For example, let's say I was to leave this podium and I'm going to walk down to this first camera here. And let's say halfway down I stopped and started to talk to somebody, and then I continued after a moment or two. I didn't make two journeys. I just made the one journey, but I did it in two parts. If you're going for a day to Orlando and you stop in Lakeland for lunch, you didn't make two trips to Orlando, you just made one, but you made it in two parts. So it may be easy to think of this in two parts, but it's not two second comings. It's just two phases. So let's back up then from this, the second coming, to this part. And this part, the catching away, is called the rapture. People have said, well, you know, that's not in the Bible. But the word Bible's not in the Bible either. And neither is the word Trinity, and I'm not interested in semantics. It's truth that we want. We're talking about a language that comes down through various languages and various words are used. We don't worry about that. The idea is simply the catching away of the bride. Some people have actually said that this idea of the rapture, this really makes me smile, has been invented fairly recently. In fact, they go back about 150 years and say there was a lady from Scotland called MacDonald who actually thought up this. Let me tell you where I got the teaching about the rapture from. I got it from the Apostle Paul. It's clearly in the Bible. And what I'm preaching to you now, I remember in 1971, when there was bombs and bullets going off all over the place in Belfast. I was downtown Belfast preaching every Sunday night in a big auditorium on the same series, and it's the same truths that I was preaching back then. This is not a new thing. The rapture is taught clearly. There are things that you cannot reconcile unless there are two phases. For example, one makes it clear by the teaching of the Bible that only His own will know when it happens. He comes as a thief in the night. That's the rapture. The other one, every eye shall see Him. The one says he's coming to take the church up. The other one says he's coming back with the saints. Which is which? If it's just one, you can't have both. But if you have two phases, then they both fit. So, the next thing that's going to happen in this old world, and we don't need any other scriptures fulfilled, will be what's called the rapture. Or let's call it the first phase. And that is, in the twinkling of an eye, he is going to come, not to the earth, but to the sky, and all who are saved will suddenly fly to meet the Lord in the air, and this corruption will put on incorruption, this mortal will put on immortality, and we will so ever be with the Lord. That is the rapture. And by the way, all those who were saved, but had died, what's going to happen is they're ready with the Lord, but their spirit will go back to that place, even if the body's long since decomposed. And at that point of victory over that grave, even if it's at the bottom of the ocean in Davy Jones' locker, there will be a great victory because they'll get their glorified body. And they will rise too, and we will rise, and we will meet the Lord in the earth.